What's good, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. In my last video, I talked about the Southeast Division and I gave my predictions and my analysis on which teams are going to finish in the postseason, which ones are going to be in the play-in, and which ones are going to be in the draft lottery. Now, I want to touch on the Atlantic Division, which includes the Philadelphia 76ers, the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks, the Toronto Raptors, and of course, the NBA champion Boston Celtics. Philadelphia acquired Paul George from the Los Angeles Clippers during the offseason, which is good considering that they need more added weapons with Kyle Lowry, Tyrese Maxey, and Joel Embiid, who won a gold medal in the Olympics this summer. But the one thing on my mind, and of course everyone else's who's fans of the 76ers, is can they get past the second round? Should they make it to the postseason? With the way the Eastern Conference looks right now, with all the loaded teams, especially in the Atlantic Division, I think Philadelphia has a 50-50 chance of reaching the conference finals come next spring. However, it all depends on one thing, or rather a few things. Mainly with Joel Embiid's health, Paul George's consistency, and how Tyrese Maxey can lead this team. I think within a few years, Tyrese Maxey is going to be the captain of the 76ers. Mainly because he's quick, he's fast, he's very explosive when he gets to the rim, and he has a lot going for him. I definitely see a lot of Donovan Mitchell, Dwayne Wade kind of archetype with Tyrese Maxey. So I think he's going to be the guy to watch for the 76ers, not just this season, but other seasons going forward. As for Joel Embiid, he just came off a gold medal winning performance with Team USA at the Paris Olympics, so I expect him to not only elevate his game, but to be more dominant in the paint and try to be more healthy and be more consistent with games. Next, we have the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn's offseason saw Mikal Bridges leave their team to go to the nearby New York Knicks, leaving them only with Cam Johnson and a rehabbing Ben Simmons, who's been trying to work on his jump shot for what it seems like the 84th millionth billionth trillionth time. While I don't expect much from Brooklyn this season, however, when it is over, I do expect them to be in the draft lottery to get the number one pick that will get them Cooper Flag. This may come as a stretch, seeing as other teams that are low in the league also have their eyes on the number one pick, but I think Brooklyn is one of those teams that can acquire the number one draft pick to get Cooper Flag. You never know. Next, we have the New York Knicks. As I mentioned before with the Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges is now a New York Knick, joining forces with Jalen Brunson to create a 1-2 dynamic in the backcourt. But let's not stop there. The addition of Karl Anthony Towns to the Knicks I think is going to make them a lot better on both ends of the floor. I mean, that's not to say that Julius Randle didn't make them better when New York became contenders in their own right. Do I think the Knicks will make the playoffs? Yes. However, I definitely see the Knicks being a top 4 team in the East, and most likely giving Boston a run for its money. But we'll have to see how far they can go and how well they can do against the other teams in the league. Speaking of Boston, after capturing their 18th championship in last season's NBA Finals, the Boston Celtics are the winningest team in the NBA. For one thing, Boston will be without Kristaps Porzingis, who sat out with an injury for much of the finals. However, I do expect him to come back sometime during December or probably earlier than that, because the Boston Celtics may be without a big man unless they have Al Horford doing the heavy lifting. As for their offense, I expect Jaylen Brown, Derek White, and Jason Tatum to continue leading the way, especially Tatum after he was benched for the majority of the Olympics for Team USA. I look for Jason Tatum to not only elevate his game, but to also have revenge games against the Golden State Warriors, mainly towards Steve Kerr for benching him for such a long time. I think Tatum is going to be one of those guys that's going to bump up his point percentages on offense. As for Boston as a whole, the ceiling for them, in my opinion, is reaching the NBA Finals and going back to back. The floor for them is going into the conference finals and getting bumped out. Either way, it's going to be another fantastic season for Boston as the defending champion. Finally, we got those Toronto Raptors. 5 years ago, Toronto was on top of the basketball world as NBA champions. 5 years later, they're now in rebuild mode, but they have a star in Scottie Barnes that they can build around. The Raptors do have a young core that I like, consisting of not just Scottie Barnes, but also Grady Dick, Immanuel Quickley, Jacoby Walker, and RJ Barrett, who unfortunately will have to sit out for 45 games due to a shoulder injury. Much like the Brooklyn Nets, Toronto's going to have a difficult season where they're trying to get wins, but I see them going into the draft lottery. I can see the Raptors getting a top 5 pick from the draft lottery and getting someone they can help build around with Scottie Barnes. As for Grady Dick and Immanuel Quickley, I can see them developing into niche players that can fill their roles on the court and be more productive and be stars in their own right. So to sum it all up, the Atlantic Division is just the Boston Celtics and those 4 other teams trying to get into the playoffs. In terms of how I see the standings for the Atlantic Division throughout the NBA season, Boston is number 1, of course. Then you got New York and Philadelphia, who I see like neck and neck. Then there's Toronto and finally Brooklyn. And those are my predictions for the Atlantic Division in terms of standing for the NBA season. I definitely see the Atlantic Division being the stronger of the 3 divisions in the Eastern Conference, next to the Central Division. As I said before, I definitely see Boston, New York, and Philadelphia being playoff teams, with Toronto and Brooklyn heading into the draft lottery. Hey, if you made it through the video, thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to reading your comments and interacting with each and every one of you. I'm Deron Butler, reminding you to always run through the paint.